Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Ordinary Meeting 4536 of Hunters Hill Council. Could I ask you all to please be upstanding? I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, of elders past, present and emerging. We are joined today by Julie Granger, who's going to deliver the prayer.
Before I do, I just really want to thank you all for the roles that you serve in this community. You probably don't get a lot of thanks, so I just want you to know that the community do appreciate you all very much. I'd also like to acknowledge that, you know, perhaps not everyone here is of the same faith, or maybe no faith at all, but one thing that we do all have in common is that we're passionate about this area, and you know, we have a beautiful community here, and I know that we all care about leaving it better for the generations to come. So, you know, just really going to pray for wisdom tonight as you make really major decisions. There was a wonderful king in the Old Testament, King Solomon. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was renowned for being an outstanding builder and administrator and a great field general. But mostly he was known as having asked God for wisdom, and that's what he got. He got what he prayed for, and he got it in abundance. So that's what we're going to pray for tonight. So if you want to bow your head, close your eyes. Heavenly Father, we come to you asking for guidance, wisdom and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. I thank you tonight, God, for these, your servants, our mayor, our city manager, our city staff and our city council members. And I give thanks for the way of service that they've chosen to take up on behalf of this community. Also, I pray for the people of this area who love to live in such a beautiful part of the world. Bless them with peace, security and the wisdom to seek you out. And we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. Please be seated. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie. That was wonderful. It was Julie's first time, ironically, at our last ordinary meeting of this term of council. So, Julie, thank you for that. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're joined by Reverend Armstrong, and that Reverend Armstrong did send us a piece of correspondence today that his congregation did pray for council at yesterday's Mass. The proceedings of all council meetings in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on council's website for the purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available to the public on council's website. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009, the GIPA Act. Members of the public attending council meeting may have their image, voice and personal information, including their name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested party. Members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, we don't have any apologies. Any declarations of interest? Oh, and thank you, General Manager. We are joined by Councillor Quinn via Zoom. He's in Alice, I believe.
Correct, yes.
It's warm up there. It's not down here.
During the day, not at night.
Councillors, any declarations of interest? No. If not, we'll move to the confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting 4535 held on 24th of June 2024. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We now move to item 4.1. There is a speaker, to this item. Miss Marilyn Malik. Thank you, Marilyn. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So good evening. My name is Mel Malik and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Hunters Hill Trust. The Trust finds the sale of any council or community owned remnant land, especially along the foreshore, as simply not on. Remnant land belongs to the community, and if it's accessible to the public to walk to or from, to discover, to picnic near, swim or wade in, then it must be retained. It is wrong to assume these areas are not used or enjoyed by residents and ratepayers. We know from COVID lockdowns, many of these areas were discovered and well used by locals. 12 Church Street, corner of Reeby Road, is 17 square metres and the R3 zone and has a big tree on it. What possible purpose or cash cow could this bring to council coffers? It's of no consequence unless there's a need to remove the large tree for a future development. Also of no particular consequence is 14 square metres at 22 to 24 Gale Street. For some reason, this area isn't zoned. The attachment photo is unclear as to public access. However, it's possible to walk to the site at low tide. Perhaps a structure has already been built on it. And then 1416 to Waibalina Road is 88 square metres, an L-shaped lane running beside and behind both houses. However, there's no mention of the houses on the opposite side bordering the lane. Could they not be potential buyers also? This lane is also accessible to the public and reminiscent of a bygone era. And then there is 16C Vernon Street, lot 31, 527 square metres, R2 zone, a large enough parcel to build something on. Photos taken over the weekend show a sandy beach, rocks to sit on, lots of trees to the water's edge. This site area borders on the Great North Walk, and on bushwalking.newsouthwales.com, you will find directions that lead to Mornington Reserve. It also has heritage value with its history outlined in our Green Book on page 160. Mornington is a locally listed heritage house located at 16 Vernon Street. In 1911, a right-of-way from Vernon Street to the Lane Cove River was granted by the Muddle family, owners of Mornington at the time, to the Balmain New Ferry Company to justify the construction of Mornington Wharf at the site. And there is an obelisk on the site also. Council's assessment report to aid justification of the potential disposal of these 4 land parcels identified under...
Sorry, Marilyn, move to extend time, move Councillor Priest and seconded Councillor Sanderson. All those in favour, against, please continue. You have
Thank you.
1 more minute.
There is an obelisk. Council's assessment report to aid justification of the potential disposal of these 4 land parcels identified under 3.1.1, page 4, whether the land is necessary to provide current or future services of the council or meet operational needs. It states, no, the land is accessible only by adjoining owner. This simply is not true, given that locals can access the public pathway down to the water's edge and beach area. And 3.1.4, where the maintenance of the land is beyond council's reasonable financial capacity. Some of these lands have access issues, which adds to cost and maintenance. We're not talking about some of these lands. We want to talk specifically about this site at lot 31 Vernon Street. Why not get a volunteer bush care group going to look at this area? The community is actually very good at this. It is a slippery slope when councils look to sell off remnant land to cash in now, rather than maintain these green spaces or develop them further for future public rather than private use. They are part of our history, our heritage, and our future generations should not be denied this privilege. Remnant land should not be seen as today's cash cow, leaving nothing behind for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Prieston.
Thank you, Marilyn. Just a question. So In terms of, I know that you spent a lot of time talking about Vernon Street site.
Yep.
But I see quite a distinction personally between, for example, Remnant 4 in the business paper, which is the thin strip of land, Ibelina Road,
Yes.
and Vernon Street, for example. So are you in favour of that kind of disposal of remnant land, or is it holistically all disposals?
No, it's no remnant land should be, that walkway in Waibelina, that should stay. But particularly Vernon Street has so much rich history. It's, it's where people used to walk down to get to the Mornington Walk. It's for our history.
I don't think the land will change just because it's potentially being sold, but yes, take your point. Thank you.
Sorry, councillor Bagara.
Just a clarification. So
Yes.
you're speaking on behalf of the trust.
On behalf of the
Is
trust.
it the trust position that no piece of remnant land should be sold, period?
That's something that the whole trust will come back to you on. I'm speaking on this piece tonight.
Is it the trust position that none of the 4 pieces of remnant land should be sold, period?
It's predominantly Vernon Street.
So it's Vernon Street, not the 17 square metre triangle.
Well, I can't understand why you'd want to sell that corner of Church Street, because it's such a small piece. You take down a tree and then you'd have not good vision. So
There's no suggestion
Hmm?
of taking down the tree, and I think the paper says that the DA for tree stuff will still apply. So okay,
Yep.
thank you. That's helpful.
okay.
Councillors, any further questions?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I've got one.
Sorry, councillor Quinn. I will endeavour to make sure I look up to see your hand up. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, look, can I just ask, this decision of the trust, can you just tell us at which meeting of the trust this decision was made? Was it a resolution, a formally passed resolution of the Hunters Hill Trust? And when was that meeting?
That meeting was the last, which I wasn't attending. I'm reading this on behalf of the trust tonight.
So do we have a formal resolution of Hunters Hill Trust members that this is the position of the trust?
I will have to get back to you on that.
Right.
Thanks, Marilyn. Councillors, any further questions? No?
Thank you.
Sorry, thanks, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Councillors, we have a motion on the floor. We don't have a motion on the floor. We have a motion in the paper. Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I move number 1 in the recommendation that the report be received and noted.
Thank you, councillor. Is that seconded? Seconded. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I think this item tonight highlights significant flaws in the policy which council has. The recommendation by the staff relies heavily on that policy, and as such, it leaves a lot of what I believe to be errors in the assessment process that's been taken. For example, that Vernon Street one, 16C, we've got a situation there, as we've heard from the speaker tonight, that it is accessible. It does provide a very significant vegetation and biodiversity contribution to that area in Hunters Hill. It's an important bit of vegetation on the waterfront and does allow access from public lands. And as we've heard, the unmade road reserve of Serpentine that goes down to the water very clearly has historical values. And I would suggest that that parcel of land also has a connectivity to that important area. There's a beautiful beach down there. There's a lot of vegetation. To me, it doesn't pass the initial test of consideration. We've got the next one, Remnant 2, 12 Church Street, and I agree, it is doesn't pass the pub test to sell that off. It's an important contribution to that intersection in terms of providing sightlines and the ability or the amenity of that intersection. It gives openness to it. Also has a very significant tree on it that is very prominent and important. And sure, we say our DA process would protect it, but we see a lot of trees disappear for various reasons. So there's no guarantee that tree would stay if that parcel of land was sold. Also, you've got the complication there, which is a very real one. It's a body corporate that owns, or it's a flat complex. And so a body corporate would be what you'd have to deal with in the sale process. And I've had a lot to do with body corporates and flats. And to get them to agree to a special levy to pay for a parcel of land, I would think would be near impossible. So it's not practical. It does have environmental and significance in terms of the vegetation on the site. It does provide amenity to the community because of the openness and the extra sight lines it provides. We get to Remnant 3 at Gale Street. The diagram, the plan, does not show where that parcel of land is. So how can I assess its location? I think that is a major flaw in the report, and it really is only 14 square metres. And we get to that point in the policy that it's got to be cost effective. Well, how much cost would be involved in selling off 14 square metres? You'd have to get a valuer's report, you'd have to get legal documentation and go through that whole process for 14 square metres. It's just not practical. And then finally we get with Remnant 4, which is the laneway. And again, it may be possible to sell that one off, but there's no context, there's no understanding as to its historical significance and what it may contribute to that local area. So I believe if the policy is relied on, then the policy is at fault. It doesn't pass the test of providing an argument that would be acceptable in my mind for the disposal of those parcels of land.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Preston. Just before you do, sorry, Councillor Preston, can I just clarify that what we're voting on tonight is not the disposal of the land. We are voting on public notification. Any disposal will be brought to council in a formal paper post the exhibition period. So this is not, we are not voting tonight on disposing of these lands. We are in accordance with the policy doing step one, which is identifying, obviously, and then giving public notice. Councillor Preston.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That was a question that I had to the GM, so thank you for clarifying in advance. I have another question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the GM. Just in light of what Councillor Williams just spoke of, Remnant 3, is it not shown in the photograph on the left on page 10
It is.
of the report, that tiny little 23 with the blue circle around it?
Yep.
So I think it's sufficiently shown. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. I also wanted to clarify where the Vernon Street site is actually accessible by the public or only by the
question.
adjacent owner.
I'm happy to, through the general manager, go to the director, but my understanding, and we'll have to get clarification on this, that is there is an easement to that parcel, and that is a private easement, so there is not public access. And if there was access, there would be issues with grading and a whole host of other things. You actually have to walk down through someone's driveway.
So where the speaker tonight alluded to a pathway on the foreshore walk that potentially provides access to that site, is that incorrect or
I
accurate?
don't believe so, but I'm happy to pass to the director.
Through you, Mayor, I'm not aware of a path along the foreshore at all. The access, there's a paper road next to it, and it's we call it Billico country, so it's very difficult for anybody to get down there or come up from it. That's
Okay.
a fact. I think, yeah. And like the mayor said, tonight's report is basically the first step, the first stage of highlighting, identifying some properties for exhibition purposes.
Thank you, councillor. Any other questions?
No, but I'd like to speak in favour of the motion when I have the opportunity.
In favour of the proposed motion?
No.
In the motion in the paper?
Can I foreshadow the motion?
You can move an amendment or you can foreshadow. Yes.
Foreshadow?
It's a bit difficult to foreshadow when the recommendation point one is also in the report itself. So if you wanted to, it doesn't need to fail. So it could be that you move an amendment to include the rest of the items, which you would be able to do, because if this fails, then I mean, the report being received and noted is part of the recommendation itself.
Okay, well, in that case, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion on the floor, which would be to reflect items 2 and 3 of the recommendation in the report.
Thank you, councillor. Is there a seconder? Seconded, councillor Garth. Oh, councillor Quinn, I'm going to give that to you because I didn't look up. Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Preston, do you wish to speak to your amendment?
Yes, just briefly. I think Councillor Williams referred to flaws in the policy, but then applied the pub test to the motion in the report, which I think is contradictory. Sorry. I think that the policy is robust, has been agreed to by the council of the day. We've deliberated, the council staff have spent hours and hours and hours doing due diligence, proper due diligence, and drafting a remnant lands policy that stands up in a court of law, quite frankly. So I think that we're not experts to be able to say that it's flawed and with no reason behind it. I think that the 4 parcels of land proposed to be sold in item 4.1 tonight, as the mayor said, will still go to public exhibition, will still receive consultation from the community, and I believe that they are all only accessible by the adjacent owners of properties. So I can't really see a public utility in keeping them as council-owned land. I'm not disregarding that we do need to keep open spaces and sightlines, as Councillor Williams referred to. I think that that's all well regarded by the community and something that we all like to see, and why we do live in Hunters Hill for its beautiful open spaces. But I think that in the context of this report and the 4 parcels of land presented to us tonight, this is not the case, and that will not affect the other open spaces and the other, quite frankly, better situated parcels of land that council does own and will continue to own.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you.
Anyone speaking against the amendment? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think the important issue here is that we're embarking on a journey. We're not approving the disposal of the land, but what we are doing tonight is approving use of council resources and staff on issues which I don't think have merit to proceed. There may be other parcels of land that may have merit. But that brings me to the point. We've never seen a comprehensive list of these so-called remnant lands. I would prefer to have a comprehensive list of what land's available for disposal, to be able to then look at that and see how council could prioritise the process, rather than just 4 items being thrown on the table and asked to proceed to the next stage, which will take resources and time to do. This issue of accessibility, I think, is a bit of a furphy, because surely the one in Alexandria Street or Church Street is accessible. And I have personally walked down Serpentine Road to the water and to that parcel of land. It is fully accessible. It is not a goat track. You can see remnants of the old path that goes down there. There's beautiful sandstone walls. There's an obelisk down there and a beautiful beach and a lot of vegetation that's very important. I don't see how, unless it's the adjacent owner, would be able to build a house and get access to it, because the only access to it is by foot and it's by public. And I've got photographs here on my phone if you want to look at, which show it is a very easily accessible location. and a beautiful location, and does have an enormous amount of vegetation on it, not ground cover, but canopy cover, which is very important. So I think it's important to receive and note this, but I don't see there's value at this stage in moving forward on the proposal. And I think that's probably where we need to refine the policy to make sure it's clear as to how we move forward. We need to be able to see the full comprehensive list of these parcels of land so we can give some guidance as to which are worthwhile spending resources and staff time on.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Councillor Crassoy.
Sorry, I
Good
did have some
question.
questions.
Yes.
Mayor, thank you. Just reminded again of the questions I had of something councillor Preston said, which is that we have other pieces of land that are potentially more worthy of retaining. And so my question is, how many parcels of remnant land exist in council's governance, oversight, ownership?
General Manager.
Thanks for the question, Deputy Mayor. Council officers have done a draft master list of the remnant lands. There is less than 50, and the vast majority of those you would never consider for disposal.
Thank you. And so that brings the second question. So there's a list that the staff have considered operationally.
Draft list, yeah.
That these 4 parcels of land have been identified as a priority for consideration for disposal. Is that correct?
That's why they're before you tonight, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And if the list is at a point where operationally the staff consider that these 4 are the best priority for disposal, would the list not be of benefit to us councillors in assisting us with our decision on whether these 4 are the best 4 to put forward to the community first? From a process point of view, would that list being available to the councillor assist us with this decision?
Well, I think through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm more than happy for the director to add to my comments in a moment. Just want to start with a couple of opening comments. The previous council did sell remnant lands with no policy. There was no policy. The second thing is that the current council have not disposed of any remnant lands during this term. Thirdly, the policy at great nauseam was prepared by, in my opinion, one of the best planning lawyers in Australia. And we took a lot of time and a lot of care to ensure that we had a robust framework. The council voted and adopted that policy. So consequently, the officers then have an obligation to follow that policy. In the context of tonight's paper, it's our view, particularly the Director of Planning, that these 4 parcels, in an identification sense, in alignment with following that policy, should be brought to you for your consideration. And that's as simple as we've done tonight. And to emphasise, the Mayor has said it, we're not asking to dispose. We're asking to be transparent and follow the process so that the public can make comment on it. Happy for the Director to add anything to that.
Thank you. I agree.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Sanderson?
In relation to remnant 3, I had a bit of trouble following the diagram because there was a little bit of confusion. Because the when you blow the map up, it actually shows the laneway between that goes from Dale Street and Hunter Street shaded. So I hope that's not in for future consideration. But in reference to
Well, just through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Sanderson, it's not in the report, then the answer is no, it's not for future consideration. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
With respect to the small piece of land between 2 and 20, or 22 and 24 Vale Street, because of the difficulty I had identifying it, I had a look at it in 6 maps. And that piece of land appears to have, it's a minimum of boat shed on it. If it has a boat shed, I presume that is the property of council. Does council, or is that shed occupied? And is council collecting any rent for use of that boat shed? I'll table the photograph if you like.
We'll take the question on notice, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
Councillors, any other questions? If not, any discussion? Councillor Vergara.
Councillor Quinn had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Quinn, sorry.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I think we're up to someone speaking in favour.
We
of the
are,
amendment.
yes, yes.
So I will speak very strongly in favour of this amendment. We have a policy of this council which the majority of this council has approved, and we should, in my view, be proceeding with that policy. What is the point of having a policy if we're not going to implement it? Now, we've heard tonight how what is proposed would not pass the pub test. We've also heard that we're now embarking upon a journey towards something that may not be accepted by the community. Well, my response to that is, let's check the pub test. Let's go to our community and ask them what they think. Let's embark upon a journey of open, transparent consultation with our community about what's proposed. Then we'll know what our community thinks, not what just a small group in our community might like to see. So I very strongly endorse the amendment and hope that I might also say, Mr Mayor, that I'm a little concerned that we heard tonight that the resolution, I don't know if it is a resolution, of the Hunters Hill Trust regarding this matter cannot be validated because there's no understanding of exactly when that position or decision of the trust was taken. So that concerns me that we're now having to consider a position of the trust that can't be in some way validated or shown that it was done through a due process of the trust membership or the trust committee. I'm also reminded that Fig Tree Park, the demolition of a cottage in Gladesville Road, was opposed by the trust. And we look now at what's there and what it's done for our community. And I think the vast majority of our community would think it's a good thing. So I'm just a little bit concerned that we might be perceiving that the position that we've heard tonight is the position of our community. The way we test that is to go to community consultation as per our remnant lands policy.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. We have the policy, even though I was not a councillor who supported it. The policy does say that the tests that we use are not exclusive. It's set out in the policy itself. There are other things that can be considered. As to the proposals, the first one, I would agree with what Mel and Councillor Williams have said in terms about its suitability. I remember the last time we were considering that road reserve. I think it was in around about September 2018. Around about that time, I can remember making my way down to that waterfront myself. It would appear from what Councillor Williams has said, it's been tidied up quite a bit since that time. Again, there's a lot of history to that site. I wouldn't be even entering into this process. With respect to Remnant 2, which is at the corner of Church Street and Reby Road, I have the advantage of knowing a lot of history about that. Reby Road was built in the early 1960s to restore access to, well, that end of Reby Road was built in the 1960s, to restore access to all the streets that have been cut off by the Burns Bay Road freeways. And the Department of Main Roads actually tried to resume quite a bit of land there to widen Reby Road. And that was fought by my parents and my aunt, who was a practicing solicitor at that time. In the end, there was a compromise made, and Department of Main Roads happened to take the corners off a couple of lots. One of them was my father's lot, or my parents' lot at that time. The other one was that block of flats, which in those days was known as Joe Mitchell's flats. Because Joe Mitchell, in the middle of last century, was one of our very early property developers. He did a lot of development subdivision down across the road from us here. Given that history, I mean, those parts were resumed for a purpose, and they have provided a lot of amenity. If you look on that particular corner now, there's a beautiful street tree there. If you look at the detail, I mean, we've got all the problems that Councillor Williams has already raised in terms of trying to sell that to a strata. If you try to sell it to the strata, I would expect they would need a bylaw with a 75% majority to be able to make that purchase as a minimum. Then they've got to raise the funds. So it's highly unlikely it would happen. I think this is a case of wasting our time. Now, if they were to successfully build it, I'm sure what they would be wanting to do is to extend those walls, because they wouldn't want a hole in the wall of lighter material, because the walls been put there specifically to stop noise. So it seems, my concern here is we start off on these processes, staff are going to waste a lot of time and will not achieve very much at all. As I've just pointed out with the one in Gale Street, there was some confusion as to which one it was, because the other map shows a very valuable laneway between Gale Street and Hunter Street highlighted. With this one, again, I'm very concerned. The image I got of 6 maps shows very clearly that there is a boat shed on that lot. Now, if there's a boat shed on that bit of land, and the land belongs to council, surely council owns that boat shed. It looks as though it's occupied. Why aren't we have a lease arrangement and collect rent? That might be a better solution for the long term. Probably the least offensive of these is the one at 1416 Wyberlin Road. And as has been pointed out, there are 4 lots on the other side. You've got a chance of either selling it to the people on Wyberlin roadside, and then in fact I think it'll be 4 different lots that may want a part of it. If you sell it to the other side, there'll be 2 different lots if you take the ones that are on the street that you enter that laneway from. So there's a lot of problems with all of this, and I'm just very concerned that we're wasting our time. Chasing rabbits down holes, if you like, that, we'll do this work and in all likelihood, in most cases, nothing will come of it.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Anyone speaking in favour of the amendment? Against the amendment? Councillor Crassoy.
I don't like to speak against it. I'm all for progress, and as much as I'm all for following a process, and I know that we have a good policy here, and I'm grateful to our current General Manager for bringing so many of our policies into the modern age. But for 7 years, I've served on this council, and for 7 years, I've heard about this list of remnant lands, and I've been asking to see it to assist me as a councillor to make informed decisions about which lands we dispose of. Now, the General Manager tells me there's about 50. For all I know, there's 4, and we're about to sell them. I don't know, because I've never seen this list, though it has existed for the 7 years that I've been a councillor. And so I'm speaking against the amendment because while the policy is good enough, the process for me as a councillor to make an informed decision about these pieces of land is not. I personally think that the tiny piece of land at the top of Reby Road mirrors the curve at the other entrance point to Hunters Hill where the pub is, as it rounds that open corner. I think it's a place where school children run across the road, and previous councillors fought hard to have extra footpaths put on Reby Road and make it a place where children could freely wander up and down the road to school and across on and off the peninsula. So I don't quite understand why choosing that corner. if I could see the list, I might have said in a briefing and not at a council meeting, why that piece of land and why not that piece? But I can't because I've never seen the list. So I'm taking it as gospel, which I've done in the past, but all I needed to see was the list to make an informed decision about these particular 4 pieces going to the next stage. And I know that it's just a step, but it's a step that costs council resources and time. And Councillor Prieston says there are better pieces. I don't know there's better pieces because I haven't seen the list. I know there's one better piece because I've been to it. And I think we should sell it and make a lot of money out of it. But I just don't understand actually how anyone can agree to move forward, wasting time and money on these particular 4 parcels, to have our community come back and give us their feedback, to have adjoining owners not interested in purchasing it anyway because we don't know that they are. So why explore the possibility of selling it if the adjoining owners haven't expressed an interest in exploring the possibility of buying it? Whereas we do know there are other pieces of land that adjoining owners have expressed an interest in buying. So why aren't we exploring them on the list that none of us have seen? I can't support the amendment at this stage. It's a great idea. It's a thorough policy, but the policy itself says that council must be informed by other factors. And the other factor is we don't know what the other 46 pieces of land that we oversee are worth to us.
Thank you, councillor Crassley.
Just, excuse me, Mr.
General
Mayor,
Manager.
I do feel compelled to make a comment in response to the Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the feedback. In my time in the General Manager's role, I have never seen a hard copy and I've never seen an electronic copy of a remnant land list. I've never seen one. It was at my initiative several months ago to work with the staff to say the councillors have been requesting a master list of remnant lands, and in good faith, the staff began the compilation of that master list. But prior to that, I have never seen an electronic copy and I've never seen a hard copy of you being promised or there was a belief that there was a list over the past 7 years. So to do it right and to do it properly, as I said earlier, we've now got to a stage of doing a draft list and have spent quality time going around and inspecting these parcels one by one and getting the data on them to get them to a draft stage. But these 4, in consultation with the Director of Planning, in our view, just stood out as obvious ones without having to show an entire list that could be considered. And can I just make this comment, which has been said a lot, where staff told me, well, respectfully, that's my decision to decide whether it's justified to go down that path. And that's what our staff are employed to do, is to do that sort of work. And respectfully, we're asked to spend our time on some inquiries that are a complete waste of staff's time, which we have no control over. So I sort of just encourage you to consider your position based on the facts of the paper and in alignment with the policy. That's all I can do.
Thank you, councillor. Sorry, Director.
Through you, Mayor, just to help and assist you on the reasoning, it's a chicken and the egg argument. What comes first? So we haven't told or expressed or asked the adjoining owners of would they buy it or purchase it. Can't do that, which we have to follow the policy. So the policy first is come back to council, identify and go through that process. That's what we're doing. So chicken and the egg, I get it, but it's really need to follow the first steps, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Director. And I might just, add very quickly that the resource has obviously been expended by the staff already in the identification and investment in that assessment. So although I hear you, councillor, Grassoy, and there will be a list once it is finalised, brought to council.
So I'm told. So I was told.
And
General manager.
we are,
General manager.
and it won't be this council, because this is the last meeting, but, that is absolutely heard and will happen hopefully in the fullness of time. Councillor Preston, you've been very patient.
Thank you. I have a question, maybe to the general manager or maybe to the director through you, Mr. Mayor. Once there is a compiled list of remnant lands, is it confidential or could it be released publicly?
I'm happy to answer
General
that.
Manager.
It's certainly the intent of the senior staff, but predominantly myself and the Director of Planning, that as you all would be aware, the council on an annual basis has a strategic workshop, and it's our intent that with the new cohort of councillors, that we'd be trying to aim to have that annual strategic session, which is normally held in sort of February to March. We'd like to have that ideally towards the end of this year, and by then we will be in a position to complete our due diligence with that draft master list and provide it to councillors very openly and very transparently for them to make to provide some feedback in regards to what they would see as the priorities moving forward. And the final comment that I'd make is that, and I'm going to be quite vulnerable here. Sometimes we're a little bit caught too, because some councillors tell us that everything should be brought to open council meetings, yet some councillors then criticise staff if they're not brought to briefings prior to council meetings. So moving forward, we'd like some clarity about the consistency of the approach there so that we can do our jobs effectively.
So can it be released publicly though? Then
That is a decision of council.
That would be,
Councillor Preston.
yeah.
That would be a decision of council, but I would say consistent with the policy, every piece of remnant lands that goes through this process that we're doing tonight must, by necessity, if you follow the policy, go to the public.
And
it's just a bit contradictory, because if you release it in a public meeting of council, then you're releasing it publicly. So
I get your point, but it is sort of that chicken and egg situation, because this process is inherently public. To be consistent with the policy, it will be the decision of the council of the day as to whether or not they want to put it on the website, for example, which they could do with great utility.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the answer is self-explanatory, Councillor Preston, that this is the irony here. One of the fundamental components that is an output of the policy is that it's 100% transparent. Every single time that the staff identify the potential dispose, it becomes a public document for notification. Yeah. So you can't be any more transparent.
No, I am talking about a list. I'm obviously aware that
I think that would be a decision. I think that ultimately would be a decision of the council of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. And so to that end, I'm wondering if I might amend my amendment. Is that possible?
No, you you can do that by agreement with Councillor Quinn, or we can vote on the amendment and then you can raise a subsequent amendment.
I might just ask Councillor Quinn through you, Mr. Mayor, if he would consider an amendment to the effect of including a point 4, which just says that a list of all remnant lands of council be compiled by the staff and presented in a confidential briefing session to the next council, or something like that.
I mean, Councillor, I think you've heard that today from the General Manager in a public forum.
I've heard it for 7 years. Yeah. It's no reflection on this General Manager, but to have it in a notice of motion is a good thing.
Councillor Quinn?
Mr. Mayor, if that's going to get this through, I will support it.
Okay. So that we are clear, could I just get the minutes up so that I can get the wording right from Councillor Preston? That you add a point 4.
So I would reword that. So just to say, during the next term of council, a list of remnant lands be compiled by council staff and presented to councillors in a confidential briefing session.
Councillor Quinn, you're comfortable with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Personally, my preference is to leave the recommendation as it is, but as I say, if it's going to get
Well, that
points
is,
1, 2 and 3 through, I'll support it.
thank you. That is now the amendment. We can go back into debate. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion, councillor Vergara.
I've been patient.
You have been very patient. I agree with you.
I'm in favour of the motion. I was in favour of it, councillor Quinn, when it was 1, 2 and 3. But if 4's on, then I'll support 4. Why I'm in favour of it is that I think this is an example of good governance, transparency and community consultation. 3 things that I've heard councillors Sanderson, Williams and Craswell speak about all term. It's a matter of good governance because I expect council to regularly review remnant lands in terms of the cost and benefit. Not a decision of the merits, it's a gate. Is the gate open for that to be considered for sale? And so as a matter of good governance, council should be weighing those costs and benefits regularly. It's a matter of transparency because we've got a policy. The policy provides how it happens, and that's how it happens. It's a matter of community consultation because it's just your obligation to identify land which is potentially available for sale, and then we get into the merits by hearing what the community says about all the other issues as listed in the policy and the ones not listed in the policy. So on those 3 things, it has to be supported. It can't not be. It's not a matter of once and done. It's these 4 and nothing else. It's these 4 now, but it could actually be these 4 again in 12 months' time because the community's views change. So I don't see how understanding how the other 46 impacts this decision. It's iterative. It's not once and done. Church Street, Ruby Road might not get up this time for some reason. It might get up in 3 years' time when things change, when that Urbis property gets developed. Who knows? So my expectation that council will do this on a regular basis. In terms of the costs, if the land sold, the policy provides the land sold to adjoining owners, the costs, all council's costs, covered by the purchaser, and they're paid before the sale goes through. So the policy is well thought through. It addresses all the considerations in an open, transparent, systematic and evidence-based way. We're not now here to guess all the things that could happen and stop it. That's what the process is for. Let's follow the process.
Thank you, councillor Vergara. There being no other speakers, councillor Prieston, would you like right of reply?
Yeah, I will just say I was in favour, obviously, of the amended motion in its original form as well. But I do think, contrary to what councillor Vergara just said, I think to be able to consider the sale of council-owned land as a proportion of a whole is valuable because it is important to retain some ownership of land, I think, for public utility and benefit, and that is one of the key criteria, obviously, of the policy. So in applying the policy, I think to be able to confidently say that we've been able to maintain council land to provide public utility, I think it's hard to be able to say that without knowing what else there is on offer. And I trust the general manager, so I was comfortable with taking his word for it. But in order to unite the council table as much as possible, I think that it's not harmful to include point 4, particularly given that it will bind the councillors to confidentiality in that session where it might be disclosed. I think everything else has been said, but that's just an explanation as to why I feel comfortable with point 4. I will just say, if there's any issue with the validity of point 4, I'd be grateful if the staff could let me know. Just, I'm not sure of the flow-on effects is what I'm trying to say of passing a motion like what is written in point 4. So
I can answer that, councillor. You've already heard the general manager commit to that, so I don't see any issue with it. That ends the debate on the amendment. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. The amendment becomes the motion. Any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, there's just one other thing I was going to add that I missed it to do with remnants to 2 in Church Street. The reason I did look at the wall there, which is very clearly been built to prevent noise in that block of flats, is that first of all, I wanted to make sure that there were no services that it would interrupt, and it appears that there are not. However, if that land is acquired, I think pretty clearly the people in those units would want to extend those heavy walls to keep the noise from that intersection coming in. With that beautiful brush box we have in that corner there, has a lot of very close to the surface roots, and I think any attempt to continue a soundproof wall would be the end of that street tree. And that street tree does represent, I think, an important welcoming to the eastern part of the suburb of Hunters Hill that was, was wounded, I guess, by the construction of the expressway in the early 60s. I guess the Department of Main Roads, as it was back in those days, probably recognised that the resumption of that land, and now it's wanting to sell it back, had a beneficial effect for the streetscape at that point. And I believe that brush box is, like all our brush boxes, are incredibly important trees. And I would hate as an ongoing feature of what we propose tonight for that tree to be destroyed.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. That is not the proposal before us. Right reply, councillor? If not,
I'll speak against the motion.
you can't. You moved the motion and spoke for it.
It's been amended.
It's been amended, but you did speak to the original motion. But councillor, please, I'm giving you right of reply because you were the original mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've heard a lot of discussion around the table about ensuring transparency. I think that is the utmost importance of what goes on around this table. And to me, to hear that both the general manager saying that they've done their due diligence and these sites are not accessible, I think opens up a whole series of issues in my mind as to how this list has been prioritised. It is the duty of this council to question, query, and make decisions based on complete information. Now, we're going to put this out, if this is approved, to go out to residents with them only knowing there's 4 parcels. I think Councillor Crassoy made a very good point, and it's one that I share, that regardless of whether it's right or wrong, successive administrations of this council have been saying that there are lists, and council has been asking for those lists. So the community is only going to have a very small portion of 50 items to weigh up the importance of these locations. They are accessible. They're not the complete picture. And I think we owe it on our community to ensure that they are informed and have the evidence before them that's necessary to make a decision. I agree it's the first step, but that first step should be inclusive and embracing all the issues that people would want to have answered. To me, it's a mismatch of different levels of of land, accessibility and priority. So I don't think it's at the stage at the moment. That's why I suggested we just receive a note and hopefully at the next stage, if council has all the information, we can start moving forward on issues that are relevant. So I can't support the motion as it now is, even though I did move the first part. And I think it's important that we remember as councillors, the people that come and speak at council meetings should have the right and be given the dignity and the respect to be heard without being criticised or commented on or interrogated. We as councillors here should embrace and encourage residents to come and speak to us at these meetings. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now move to item 4.2, Victoria Road and Manning Road proposed right-hand turn restriction. There is a recommendation in the paper. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion?
I'd
Williams.
like to speak to this one briefly. This has been a long and protracted issue that's spanned over the 47 years of the last two councils. It's one that's not easily resolved. There are, as it says in the report, other options to deal with the traffic issues as experienced and perceived by residents in those streets. It is clear from the response from the community through the consultation process, I think it was 102 to 19, that meddling or changing the right-hand turn off Victoria Road into Manning Road would not be acceptable for a whole range of reasons for residents in that location. I think even yourself, Mr. Mayor, pointed out that maybe the report should have looked at other exit locations rather than just Venus Street. So it has been a long process. I think there are other solutions which are identified in the report, but again, there's a real broad response from residents to all those different options. So I think at this point in time, it's very clear that that's not an option which we should be proceeding with. And I'd also like to mention that many residents have been concerned about press statements about lights at Salter Street and Victoria Road. And I think from my perspective, that is very much not on. We've formalised that concept within that precinct. So I support the motion. Don't proceed with that right-hand turn, but we still have that thorny issue to resolve in relation to Kingston Good Street.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just simply add to that by saying the community spoke, we listened. I think it's really important that, as Councillor Williams alluded to before, we do take community responses with the utmost importance and we implement them at the council chamber.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion? If not, rather reply, councillor.
No.
No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.3, investment strategy, policy and portfolio review for year ending 30 June 2024. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Quinn. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.4, draft community grants policy and program timeline. Moved Councillor Prieston, seconded Councillor Quinn. Any discussion? Councillor Prieston.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to say thank you to the director, Annie, for all your hard work on this. It's really good to see innovation in something that has been such a long-standing policy of council, to keep people excited, to keep the community engaged, and it's something that we should all be supportive of. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crasaway.
It's more just to observe, and I'm not sure if it's a typo, but halfway down the second page of the report, so page 163 in the paper.
Yep.
Above the table with the timeline and details, it says Hunters Hill Australia Day Citizen of the Year Awards program dates. But this is for the execution of grants.
Yes.
And so I just.
That's,
it's just a typo?
it seems like a typo to me. Yes, it is.
Okay.
We'll have that deleted from the record.
Okay.
Councillors, any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now move to item 4.5. Citizen of the Year Awards. There is a recommendation on page 172. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? If not, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Now move to item 4.6, progress report on delivery program and operational program for the 6-month period, 1st of January to 30 June 2024. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Preston. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. On page 176, under Fig Tree Park, it states the upgrade has been completed and officially opened. I'm just wondering, the toilet that was part of the original scheme hasn't been, so is it finalised now? We're not getting the toilet.
General Manager.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Williams. The answer is that the staff, predominantly led by Samantha and I, are continuing to liaise with the state government about securing that funding for the toilet block. And we're reasonably confident that we will have an outcome within 2 weeks.
Yeah, councillors. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, but is it correct to say the upgrade has been completed?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess if you want to go to the nth degree of using the word completed, well, yes, you could argue that that's not correct because we're still trying to acquit that money, Councillor Williams. So happy to stand corrected. It's completed to this stage, subject to our ability to secure the remainder of that funds. But if we're unsuccessful in acquiring those funds, then yes, it is completed to this stage thus far.
It's completed.
Yeah.
Councillor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, following on from that, in the body of the tables that are provided within this item, we have a series of status dots. And for instance, on page 181, it says the due date was the 30th of June 2024. It has a green dot, which in the table says progressing on schedule.
Which item is this for, councillor?
Sorry?
Which item is this for?
1.2.1 on page 181. It also appears on the next page and on other pages throughout that report that we have a completion date. But the point I'm making is that if it's not complete, we need to identify it as something that is proceeding behind schedule. And we need to have a date which shows when it's going to be completed so that we can monitor the progress of it. So I think that needs to be considered and corrected in the report.
Councillor, I'm still, what item are you talking, like what is the subject of the item you're talking about?
We're talking about progress report 4.6 on the delivery program. And in the half yearly report, it's sort of
Page 182, the bottom item on the table.
181, 182, and then on 186.
Yep.
187. And it goes on. So wherever there's a June completion date and a green dot, I think that needs to be rectified to an orange dot. But more importantly, we need to be able to see what is the projected date for completion.
General Manager.
I'll hand it to the director, who's the author of the report. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may answer this in a roundabout fashion, Councillor Williams. The operational plan is a really interesting document. So operationally, our date should always be the end of year. So Typically what we find, and our advice from the Office of Local Government has been to keep it to the 30th of June in the particular year that the operational plan is falling. So unfortunately, there are some items within our operational plan that are ongoing items. Many of those are, for example, 1.2.2, work with transport partners to advocate for city servicing along major transport corridors. That, for example, would have a 30th of June 2024 deadline. However, it is an ongoing item that has been reflected in our delivery program, which is a 4-year plan, and also in our community strategic plan, which is a 10-year plan. So within the operational plan, there are anomalies like those. I think we do a very good job generally to cite areas where there are ongoing items from year to year, and we're certainly always available to answer queries prior to council meetings on any of those anomalies. Also, I'd just like to add that particularly for the operational plan for this council, given our resources and the one staff member who does that, being the person speaking at the moment, I think we do a very good job of reflecting the complete progressing on schedule, progressing behind schedule, not progressing, and reporting on those 6 monthly as per the legislation under the Local Government Act and Office of Local Government guidelines. So I have gone in a very roundabout way of answering your question, but I'm very comfortable as the director responsible with what we have in front of us here tonight.
Thank you, Ms Goodman. Councillors, any further questions? Any discussion? If not, right to reply, councillor?
No.
No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.7, we move on to capital works program as at 30 June 2024, works in progress and funding required to be revoted. Moved Councillor Prieston, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion, Councillor Prieston? If not, so Councillor Vergara, question? Yes.
So on page 206,
Yes.
asset class footpaths, project description, LGA implementation of bike plan stage 2. And the last sentence says recommended funds to be carried forward and allocated towards construction costs. I was just wondering if the design, which is design for implementation, which is commenced, whether that comes back to council before construction.
General Manager. Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely, yes, it will.
Because I just wanted to avoid the over-design problems we had with Final
Which is an item later in the report. Councillors, if there's no more discussion, Councillor Williams.
In relation to the same page 206, Gladesville stormwater upgrade, Gladesville Road stormwater upgrade.
Yes.
That's been transferred from the Woolwich upgrade. I was just wondering, has consideration been given to the impact of channeling more water into that drainage system on the residents of Rocher Avenue? Because the recent rainfalls have raised serious concerns by those residents as to the capacity of the drain or the watercourse down below Gladesville Road heading towards Tarban Creek. And what I would imagine is what we're doing here is putting more water into that drainage system. I was just wondering whether has there been consideration of the benefit of leaving that water run down the road to allow it to freely get away rather than channeling it into a system which is very problematic for the residents in that whole street down the back of their properties.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll go to the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The stormwater, this stormwater project includes design, and it is to increase the capacity of the stormwater system. So we will consider, we will undertake a survey and consider the network in the area as part of this work.
Councillor Williams.
So it is what you're saying is that you'll be using this money to improve the whole length of that stormwater conduit, or is it just the distance along Gladesville Road, which then would concentrate more water down into those properties?
We're looking at increasing the capacity on Gladesville Road, but we are looking at a design that considers the network, the area, because we don't want to solve one problem and create another one down the line. So we'll investigate that.
Which is consistent with the briefing that we had on that issue too. Councillors, any further questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.8, Local Government New South Wales 2024 Annual Conference. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.9, Local Government Election 2024, Regulated Period, Caretaker Provisions and Use of Council Resources. Moved Councillor Prieston, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? If not, yes, Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, there just was one point that I picked up. That is on the top of page 263. It's 236. The top of that page, publishing the mayoral column before the days preceding the elections, is a generic column. So I presume we'll do as we've done in past years, and that will be, if it's done at all, it'll be presented by the General Manager.
That's just going to be a big photo of my face. I'll put that to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, I was being flippant.
So firstly, as you would all be aware, there is a mayoral column predominantly in two places. One is in the TWT and one is in the e-news. They will both run this week and then they cease as per the regulations. I'm not conscious, Councillor Sanderson, of what has happened previously, but I can very openly tell you I have no intentions whatsoever of writing that column.
Councillor Prieston.
I'll also just point out on page 237, there's a code of conduct induction scheduled for the 7th of October. That's Labor Day. So it's a public holiday, just saying.
Yeah.
You guys do with that information what you will.
Well, thanks for pointing that out, Councillor Prieston.
I would assume the new cohort of councillors, whomever they may be, will be very happy to come in on Labor Day and do their induction.
Yes.
We will have a look at that. Councillors, any other questions? If not, councillors, no. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.10, Bronia Park Sports and Community Facility. We do have a speaker for this item, Mr. Alastair Sharp. Alastair, welcome back. You have
Good evening.
3 minutes.
Before I start, could I give copies of some photographs that are relevant?
You may.
What I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alastair.
Thank you. Bronia Park, I walk in Bronia Park most mornings, I suppose. And I walk right through, so I see the sporting fields and I see the bushland areas. But I had no idea of what was being proposed for stormwater drainage from the facility, because of course those documents haven't been made public. So I was a bit surprised to see.
Dr. Sharp, just to be clear, those documents were part of the DA package, which were absolutely a public document.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yes.
Diagram 1 on the business paper 4.10 shows two green lines of where the stormwater drains were going to run. Actually, they weren't built like that. The bottom left drawing from Google Maps, you can see a little bit further up the page from where the green line would have been. There's a drain running. You can see that the ground has been opened. The drain running to the right, further away from the cricket nets. And the final photo shows the end of that drain. It exhausts on discharges onto the top of a slope. Now, my concern is that I have two concerns. Basically, it's very poor practice to discharge drainage into bushland. Normally, drainage is discharged into a watercourse of some sort. Diagram 1 shows that it was intended to deliver the water directly into established bushland rather than either to Park Street or Bronia Avenue. Now, I don't understand why there are two stormwater drains, but maybe somebody can explain that. Now, as installed, as in the bottom right-hand photograph, the drain runs to the top of the slope. Basically, it's the slope that descends from the level of oval 2 to the level of oval 3. During the recent heavy rain, that became a quagmire. It was churned up by innumerable soccer boots, and I doubt if it will ever actually become dry again, because it's very strange practice to run water down the surface of public space. I think the stormwater, I don't understand why the stormwater drained, but part of the stormwater is to be drained onto the into the bushland, which certainly is very bad practice, or why it wasn't all drained the other way. I think the stormwater should be reconfigured to discharge to the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Councillors, any questions of Dr. Sharp? Not. Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation on page 250. Councillor Crasaway moved, seconded. Councillor Prieston. Any discussion?
The officers for all the work.
Yes.
To get it.
Absolutely, and I take my hat off to Mitchell, but particularly to Sam, who's been dealing with this issue for longer than I dare say she's wanted to. Councillors, any questions?
Yes, I had a question.
Yes.
On page 51, the second paragraph
251.
refers to the development consent for the facility being granted in October 2021. Is that right? Is it 2021?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Councillors,
Time flies.
Councillor Williams.
Question. Dr. Sharp has pointed out the green line that runs the drainage into the bush. My recollection was in the DA process that there wasn't a drain there. Has that been added subsequent to the DA process? And if it has, what's the rationale for that?
Director. Oh, well, sorry, General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy for the director to answer Councillor Williams' question, but can I just say that it's not the director's responsibility to be answering questions on a document that's provided on the night of a meeting from a member of the public, but happy to the director to address Councillor Williams' question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the drainage system that goes out onto just above oval 3 is simply, it isn't related to the building. It's related to the diverting the overland flow from oval 1 that would normally go down to oval 3, but it's about diverting it from the building. So the building stormwater is the stormwater that goes to Park Road. The only stormwater that is going into that system is the overland flow from oval 1. And that has been done to ensure that we don't have any flooding issues within the building.
Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Vergara.
Thank you for that. I am concerned though, because overflow would go inland and kind of seep down as opposed to a stormwater which will flood, not, concentrate the flow. And Bronia 3 is actually a very good oval that council has. So I'm concerned in terms of a sporting community concept that might impact the integrity of B3. So that could maybe be considered and some mitigation. I understand why it was done, but I think you need to think forward the consequences of that for B3.
This stormwater network was engineered and there will be a filtration system installed in the next couple of days, which mitigates the overflow. But we have tested the stormwater capacity down there, and it is adequate. So we have done a lot of work on that.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the question, the answer to the question by the director, but that question is, was it, in addition to what I asked, was it in the DA or was this subsequent a decision made post DR?
General Manager?
No, the director.
Oh, sorry.
Through you,
Director,
Mr. Mayor,
yeah.
it is a subsequent, this is, as I said before, it isn't related to the building. It's related to the overland flow from Oval 1, which has been an issue for a while. The building, we just wanted to divert it around the building.
Yes, but I'd also ask the question, is this best practice to drain into a bushland setting, which is where it's going, apart from the potential erosion of the bank and further cost to council? But my understanding of bushland, it's based on the vegetation's based on the ongoing water regime. And if we're now going to focus a whole lot of extra water in a concentrated way into the bushland, because it's not going onto the oval, it's going into the bushland, are we going to have the potential of disrupting that bushland, the species there, the change, because it's going to become a lot wetter than what it traditionally is? So I was just wondering, does that, as pointed out by Dr. Shah, end up creating a longer term problem for the bushland downstream?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it won't. We have looked at it. I believe it won't.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Sanderson.
Just one quick follow on from those questions. Is there any prospect of harvesting that water?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are always plans to better that area, and that's certainly something we can explore down the track.
Councillors, any other questions? Any further debate? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I know in the report that the financial issues are going to be treated in confidential, and I appreciate that that is the way to do it for the tender process. But in terms of the community having visibility of what the costs of that project are, I was just wondering, are we going to make public the actual expenditure on that project? Because we've ended up with latent soil conditions which have considerably increased the cost of that project. I think the community really would benefit by knowing what the actual expenditure is and the reasoning behind it. The reasoning's here, but consequence in terms of cost are not. And I think the community is entitled for full disclosure on cost. I agree, and I know that we can't put the tender stuff in, but I think the overall budget and change in budget should be available to the community for their reference.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'm sure we can consider that in closed session. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Crasaway, reply.
I'm just grateful for the assurance that the director has just given us about this piece of drainage. I do recall, it might have even been before my term on council or early in the last term of council, that significant drainage work was done on Oval 3 with some developer contributions. The reply that the director gave was that this section has been well engineered to manage the flow from Oval 1 to Oval 3, not directly into the bushland. So based off this photograph, I'm going to put my faith in the engineering and the director's helpful response there. So thank you for that. And just wanted to say that I'd heard the feedback and I'm happy with the director's response. And happy with the
Thank you, Councillor Crasaway. Councillor Williams, debate has concluded.
No, just a question.
Debate has concluded. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add before you vote? Thank you, Councillor Sanderson, for your suggestion about the harvesting. I think it's a good one. Can I just also add that it's not in the context of the report, but I'd like to point it out to the councillors is that Samantha and I have already had discussions that from a grant funding point of view, what will also help in the long run too, is a drainage project on Baronia 1. And that's something that's top of mind, very similar to what was happening on Baronia 3. So that's a futuristic project that we will try and get grant funding for, and that will make a world of difference.
Thank you, General Manager. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with one vote against, being Councillor Williams. Item 4.11, Farnell Street and Baronia LATM update. There is a recommendation to receive the report. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion, Councillor Crassoy? No? Yes. Anyone like to address in favour? Against? Not. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Apologies. Item 4.12, development applications to turn by councillors. We are at that point in the meeting where I'm going to test my luck and see if there are any items that are of particular interest to councillors. Otherwise, I will suggest that we move in block from item 4.12 to item 4.28. Councillor Priest.
4.25.
425. Yes.
No, 4.24.
And 4.22, because it's got the ITS in it.
4.22, 4.24,
4.16.
4.25, 4.26 and 4.27.
5, 6 and 7. Okay.
4.12.
Councillors, is that all? If that is the case, what I will do is I will suggest that we move items 4.12, 4.13, 4.14, 4.15, 4.17, 4.18, 4.19, 4.20, 4.21, 4.23 and 4.28 in block. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is that for or against, Councillor Quinn?
Oh, that's 4, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes, okay. Thank you.
4.16.
So 4.16, Consolidated Stormwater Management Policy for adoption. Councillors, I'm in your hand. Move Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Sanderson.
Yes,
Any discussion?
Yes, I just had a question on that one. Well, first of all, paragraph on page 329. It says this policy does not relate to the Huntsville Regional Flood Study that was finalised on 18th of November 2021. As I recall, that study was never adopted by the former council, and that will just come back to this one. And that particular date, the last meeting of the last term of council would have been in October 2021. So it's not, wouldn't be correct to say that flood study has been finalised.
Yeah.
If I could ask.
General Manager. Yeah.
Well, let the director answer, Councillor Sanderson, but that's precisely what we're saying, and it's not.
Yes, if I haven't got the report in front of me, but if that's what it's saying, we'll have it amended. It was to point out that it's not related to that
this.
flood study.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
was never adopted and it's still in train.
Councillors, any further questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.22, minutes of the Movement Transport Advisory Committee held 4th of July 2024. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Councillor Quinn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So in this
Provide
report,
an update, I should say, as the chair.
Thanks. In this report, we have the draft integrated transport strategy recommended for adoption by council to go to public exhibition. It is an incredibly substantial document, but also a very important strategic document for this council. If this ultimately does get adopted by council, and it'll obviously be in the next term of council that it is considered, we will have in place a document which will unlock, we believe, significant opportunities for grant funding for major transport and people movement initiatives. So I can't emphasise enough how important it is that we have this strategic document out on public exhibition and hopefully later adopted by the next council. Can I also acknowledge the members of the Movement and Transport Advisory Committee who have been very much part of this process to develop this document. It's taken a couple of years, and I particularly acknowledge the expert assistance, advice offered by Mark Lane, a member of our community, who is a professional in this area. His input into this process has been, quite frankly, outstanding. And I think those other members of the committee that are on council would fully support that. So I commend this report to councillors, particularly the draft as it's presented. Can I also acknowledge the director, Sam Urquhart, and her team for the extraordinary effort that has gone into getting us to this point in time. I'm aware that there are a few hiccups on the way in various areas. And I'm also aware that over the last month, there has been an extraordinary amount of staff time and effort going into tidying this document, this draft document up, so that it is ready to be presented tonight for us to consider. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. And whilst we're in thanking mode, can I thank you for the work and the councillors that are on that committee? It's a very comprehensive document, and hopefully those grants will be forthcoming. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Speaking for the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I presume I will speak against it, but look, I'd like to echo what Councillor Quinn has said. In particular, the process we went through. Mark Lane's work was absolutely outstanding. My only concern really about where we are at the moment, and I mean, I think the committee handled this well. We had a couple of sessions where we went through the document in great detail, made suggestions, and tried to iron out any possible problems. My biggest concern is, though, that of the original work that Mark did, the consultants who took the project over tended to leave a little bit out. I really believe part of the process is, and I made this note that you'll see in the documentation both Mark and I made written submissions at the time. We didn't have a great deal of time to work with the final version that the consultant produced. But what I believe part of this process should be is to have a comparative analysis between where Mark's work stood at the end of the time he finished, because that document had a lot going for it, and it was very specific to Hunters Hill. What we got from the consultant was something that was far more generic. It's had a lot of work done on it, but I think it's very careful, very important. I mean, there were some quite progressive ideas in Mark's document. Some of them are probably too difficult, but we shouldn't lose hope of those things, like an additional ferry wall or protecting our all of the walkways and trying to get vehicles off our streets. We can't continue to have situations like my partner Jean experienced the other day, because she had an appointment time move, tried to leave home, and got caught up leaving the avenue, and the result was she cancelled her appointment because she couldn't see she was going to get there. Arrived home half an hour later, having driven around the block. That is what's happening with some of our traffic at school drop-off times. Part of the aim of this whole process is to get traffic off our roads, and I think there are a lot of things in Mark's work that would have achieved that. So I think that comparative analysis is going to be extremely important. And I hope, given that we've got 42 days, that we'll have the opportunity for that analysis to occur.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion? Councillor Crassoy, right of reply?
I think it was councillor Quinn's motion.
Oh, sorry, it was councillor Quinn's motion, sorry.
Just to add what great work the
Yes.
committee did, and that this consultation period does provide that opportunity to finesse some of those thoughts that the committee had at the last workshop, and that the committee actually did offer their time, even though council will be in caretaker mode, they did offer their time to volunteer to give council as much support as possible to see the document be the best it can be for the next council.
Thank you, councillor Crassoy. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Quinn, right of reply.
Mr. Mayor, just also, I should also note that one member of that committee who attended every meeting until she fell into illness is Pamela Alvarez. So I also want to just acknowledge her. She was most diligent in her attendance at the committee. That's why she appears as an apology for these last few meetings. Now, just for the record, I'm not sure if he's still in the chamber, but I should have picked this up when I reviewed the draft. It should note Dr. Alistair Sharp as being in attendance, not Mr. Alistair Sharp.
Thank you, councillor Quinn. I'll put that ends debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.24, minutes of the Conservation Advisory Panel meeting held on 19th of June 2024. Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'll move the.
It's moved. Seconded, councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams.
I'd like, even though it's not representing the last meeting of the panel, which those minutes will probably, will have to go to the new council. But I'd like to echo my comments at the end of that meeting in thanking those panel members who give up their valuable time to provide a level of expertise to build on the council's resources and staff. It is an advisory body. They don't make decisions. And sometimes it's a forum where people have expectations that may or may not be able to be realised in the context of heritage and conservation, which this panel specialises in. I think it served this council well, and the planning department within council with that expertise and that advice, which is freely given. So I thank them as chair of that panel for their contribution, and hopefully we'll see them back again in the new council term.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.25, minutes of the Cultural and Events Advisory Committee held on 15th July 2024. Councillor Prieston. Seconded, councillor Crassoy. Councillor Prieston.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I just wanted to note a few things that we discussed in the last meeting of the Cultural and Events Advisory Committee. Firstly, I'll start by acknowledging the members of the committee. They all brought something different to the table and all had different expertise that was really valuable to the committee during this term of council. And I think councillor Crassoy would attest to that. Also, thank you to councillor Crassoy for being in attendance for most of the meetings and for providing insights from her prior terms on council as to how council events are run and how we can best assist community events to continue to thrive in Hunters Hill. We acknowledged the Fig Tree Park opening, which was a feat of this council and something that I felt particularly passionate about from the inception of the idea in the last term of council, where I was just a bystander on the sidelines, a local, who participated in all of the community consultations. And I've now been able to see that project all the way through from being a local invested in the community consultation process to now attending, the park as a local and appreciating everything that it has to offer. So I also applaud, and the committee members also applaud the council staff for their work on that project. And then the Woolwich markets. So these minutes reflect the work that the mayor and I have been doing on this project. We're trying to bring the markets back to the locality. We haven't had markets in the suburbs since they were lost at Riverside Girls High many years ago, and the committee worked really hard at providing ideas which we've been able to take as kind of a segment of the community's views and implement in our discussions with all different stakeholders in preparation of hopefully bringing the markets to Woolwich. That's all from me. I also implored the committee members to sign up for the committee again in the next term because they all made such a valuable contribution. And thank you to Gabby as well. Shouldn't be remiss of me to forget to mention Gabby. She worked really hard and does work really hard on all of her events, and the work that she puts in behind the scenes is immense. So the community should be really grateful to have her behind the scenes. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Any discussion, Councillor Crassoy?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Preston on chairing her first committee of council. She did so ably and with passion, and she brought out the best in all members of the committee. It was a very successful committee. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. Councillors, any further discussion? General Manager has some comments.
Just quickly through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Preston, one thing that I know that you've been passionate about, and I totally agree, is that upping our game in terms of the digital aspect of promoting our events and having that. So I can give you an undertaking. One of the things that the great thing about caretaker mode is you actually get a chance to do a few things that you just literally run out of time to do. So one of the things is to work on a high level best practice digital interaction play with Sherry to make sure that on our digital channels that we're bringing that best of breed approach as well in an electronic format.
Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. That concludes debate or discussion in this instance. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I think, Councillor Quinn.
Yes.
Yep. Minutes of the Bushland Management Advisory Committee held 15th July. Councillor Williams moved, seconded. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. We've heard tonight the value of our advisory committees, and this is no exception. We have a very talented group of people that not only provide leadership and guide our volunteers in our bushland, which I think is well over 70 people contributing to our bushland, but these committee members are probably the leaders of those groups, and they provide a very in-depth understanding of our bushland and those locations which they're very familiar with, and provide council with feedback on how processes are impacting on our bushland. It's very important also to note this level of expertise is given freely, and people don't get paid or don't get any reimbursement for this, as do all the other committees. And it's a really outstanding feature of our community that they do offer up their time, and it's not unsubstantial. There's quite a bit of work in doing reading the papers and liaising with people, particularly in the bushland setting, with the people that the volunteers in the area. They've also contributed very significantly to the tree canopy policy and the initiatives which the director has brought forward to the panel. And as I did at the meeting, I really appreciate the effort and time that those panel members have contributed. And I will note that even though they've had their final meeting, all the members of that committee have indicated their willingness to provide informal feedback if required during the time between now and hopefully a new committee is established. So thank you to all those people and to all the people that support them as volunteers.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any further discussion? Not. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. Minutes of the Arts Advisory Committee held 16 July 2024. Moved, Councillor Williams, seconded, Councillor Crassoy. Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Again, with this committee, people give their time up selflessly to improve our community outcomes. And the art show is a very substantial, or the art exhibition is a very substantial part of our community and social calendar in Hunters Hill. And this time round in this council term, the committee has been fairly small, but highly effective and highly committed to supporting the staff member Gabby in delivering, which I believe, and I think it's clearly acknowledged across the community, the two exhibitions that they were responsible for curating and judging and bringing to bear were exceptionally good, and particularly post-COVID, where the whole process had to be kicked off again. So again, I thank those members of the committee for their contribution. And again, they have offered, because during the caretaker mode and into the hopefully formation of these important committees in the new council, there's a lot to be done in terms of putting together the next art show, which is only in October. So they're also offering, if council wishes to engage them in that process in an informal way.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any further discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. The planned events we have already voted on in block. Item 5.1, correspondence from the Valuer General regarding the redistribution of the Valuer General's general valuation delivery schedule. Very riveting stuff. Councillors, that is just for noting. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? If not, that is carried. Noting that we are on item 7.1 and we are, oh no, here it is. Questions with notice. Councillor Sanderson, item 7.1 on page 684. Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, yeah, look, the only question I have further to those answers is, oh, sorry, on page. Yeah, in relation to the tree that was cut down in the road reserve surrounded by Ryde Road, Matthew Street and Short Street, I was not aware that it was dead, but I did ask the question in relation to whether it should have been referred to local planning panel. I can recall early in 2018, not long after the local planning panel was formed by this council, tree removals of conservation areas were then referred to local planning panel. Will that happen in the future?
General Manager.
We'll take the question on notice, Councillor Sanderson. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we have come to the end of our ordinary business and we'll need to go into the committee of the whole. So there are a couple of items to consider. For the members in the public audience, if we do vote to go into the committee of the whole, we will have to kick you out and shut the doors. So our apologies. This is the last meeting of council. If you do stick around outside, there's not much else to listen to. Your patience is remarkable, sitting this long through a council meeting. Councillors, is there a motion to move into committee of the whole? Moved, Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with one abstention. No? Yes. Oh, you're a yes. Hands up, Councillor Williams. That is carried unanimously. Thank you to members of the general public that have stuck it out with us. Hope you have a warm walk home.